So today I'm going to do a tan and white Andino Deceiver, or Andino Muddler should I say, as said on the previous videos, or previous posts should I say. This is a trimmed deer hair or spun deer hair head. The original has the butt ends of bucktail flared and not trimmed as much. This is more of a muddler style head. Still pushes plenty of water, catches Golden Dorado very well, and tarpon actually. But yeah, pretty quick. Well, not quick, but pretty straightforward pattern to tie. So I'm gonna show you there. Material wise, I'll go through as I tie, as per usual. But to start off with, the hook is an SL12 4.0. I'm not going to have enough thread, I think I might. Hook is an SL12 4.0. I'm just laying a base of 210 uni nylon. Nice strong thread, not too thick, not too thin, just right. Going to lay a little pinch of bucktail down to support the tail feathers. It's about 2.5 inches long, or just over 2 times the length of the shank. Just a couple of wraps to hold that down. And we're going to take some purple flashabou, very light purple, pearlized, I think it's called, based on pearl should I say, so it's quite see-through. Just fold that. There's only 6 or 7 strands. V-tied it around the shank. Tail feather wise is 6 saddle hackles. I'm just pulling the base of the fluff off. So what I've got is 2 tans, 2 whites, and 2 grizzlies that I have tanned in a ginger colour. So it's slightly richer than a standard tan. What I'm doing, I'm just laying 3 feathers, one on top of each other, white on the inside, then tan, then the ginger. I'm going to tie all 3 in at the same time. Basically just laid them on the side of the hook, and a couple of wraps just to keep them in place while I do the other side. Now the feathers are curving inwards, so they'll curve inwards towards each other. And again, you can tie these in individually, one at a time. I tend to do it all at once. Once they're glued down, which I'll show you there in a second, they're not going anywhere. So just trim off the excess butts. I'm just going to put a drop of super glue in the V that's made there, and then wrap that thread down nice and tight, sealing those feathers. And you'll get people that say that feathers will pull out when they're tied in clumps, but I've never had that problem. So what I've got here is some ripple fibre from Vineyards. And again, 5 or 6 that I'm V-tying, or wrapping around the bobbin, sliding it down my thread so it V's across on either side of the tail. I'm just going to trim these off about 2.5 inches, or 2 inches, sorry. And that'll give a nice flashy side. Right, because that flares a bit. Where's my clips gone? Just going to pop that down on the tail. I'm going to do the belly now with a bit more white bucktail. Again, I tend to keep the belly ties a bit shorter. So on these 4.0s, it's about 2 inches, just over 2 inches for the first tie, and then 2 inches for the second one that I'll do afterwards. I'm just tying that in. Now this bucktail is quite a soft bucktail, so it flares quite nicely, but I'm leaving a bit of a butt end there, and again that's going to support the second butt end, or second tie point. It's going to help create a bit of flare. Now I've got a bit of light tan bucktail here, for the first tie. This will be about 3 inches long. Now I'm not worried, I'm not straightening the tips or anything here, because I don't think that it's needed in these flies. I prefer the sort of staggered tips that you get directly from the tails. Now if there's any super long ones, depends on the tail actually, to be fair, but on this tail they're all pretty uniform to a degree, so I don't really bother that much with lining up all the tips, because straight off the tail they're not too bad. Alright, small pinch of gold angel hair, going V-tying it round the vise, or around the thread, and I'm just going to brush it in to that first tie of the back. Right, bring that forward a touch. And just before I go any further, I'm going to tie in my dumbbell eyes, which are a 4mm dumbbell with a yellow eye. Just figure of 8ing them, not quite figure of 8ing, going onto the right, onto the left, and pulling it, and then wrapping around. Fair bit of pressure on that thread there, lock them in. Not going to bother about gluing that just yet, because they will be glued as soon as we have done spinning the head. Again, another small pinch of white bucktail going in on the belly. Now this will be again a touch shorter than the previous tie. There we go. Now just moving it around the fly using my thumb, so it's covering the bottom half of that hook, and I'm using the butt ends of the previous tie point. As you can see, because it's not a taper, it's quite a sharp edge. The bucktail, if I keep going back, which I'm not going to do, bucktail will flare more and more as it pushes up against that the butt ends of that previous tie point. But I'm not going to do that just yet, because I'm going to get the top bit tied in first. Cutting it very fine on the old thread there. It's going to be tight going. Again, this is slightly shorter than the previous top bunch. It's about 2.5 inches or so. Push it all the way around. A couple of tighter wraps just to lock that down. And then some peacock curl, 5 or 6 strands over the top. Trim off that excess. So I'm going to put a drop of glue there. I think I'm going to have just enough thread to tie this head. So this is bleached white deer hair that I've dyed tan. Going, just cut a small bunch, about thickness a little bit less than a pencil. Pulling out the fluff out the base. Just pinching it just behind the eyes. Pinching it with my thumb and forefinger. Doing a few wraps. Lock it down. Again, I mean there's other people that are better at spinning deer hair than me. But you don't need to go too fancy. Again, you can line up the tips with a hair stacker. I prefer the staggered tips that are straight off the patch of fur. There we go. Again, just using the eye, literally right up behind the eye on these. And I'm just going to wind it forward as I go. Get some extra thread in there. Just enough to finish this fly. I've just locked that down. I haven't super glued anything just yet on the eye. Literally 2 wraps holding that on there. So that's basically the fly done. All that's left is to trim it with a razor blade. So I'm just going to brush that out, make sure there's no trapped fibres. Looks good. So I'm just laying it on the eye, the razor blade on the eye. Now you can use a razor blade in your fingers. I'm tired of kind of cutting my fingers, so I now use this little tool. I do think you get better precision using the razor blade in your fingers, but yeah, I cut myself too often. So to get the top angle, I just lay my blade on the eye of the hook and on the eye itself, and I just slide it up and then lift it just as I get top to get that nice angle. Then just keeping it at the same angle, cut in the bottom, and then take away a few of the tips on the corners, just round that edge a little bit. Again, trim these for days if you want. I tend not to. But that is the fly done. Last but not least, just to neaten it up a touch more, I like to singe it with a lighter, stinky, but cleans it up fairly nicely. But it does stink. Luckily, I'm in an outside shed, and my wife is inside, so she's not going to mind. And that is the Andino. Just pop a bit of super glue in there, go pretty heavy on it, because I'll hang it up, and the glue is going to soak down into the thread through the deer hair as well, and it'll wick down. But yeah, that is the Andino, or the muddler head, just like that. Thanks for watching.